Let's just say that I was able to identify these extraordinary structures, take them apart, completely reinterpret them someplace new, and then I had the help of extraordinary artisan builders. I'm Alejandra Cisneros. I'm an architect and an artist. I've been living in Bali for 20 years. So I grew up really extraordinary. My mother is Argentinian, my father Cuban. We were my dad's second family, and my father was a very well-known industrialist. As beautiful as it was for my brother and I, it was complicated for my mom because we were my father's unseen family. You know, that is why the theme of seen and unseen is so important for me. And it's very much a part of the Balinese, right? The sikala and niskala. But it's also a theme in my life because we were the unseen family. That was the beginning, of so many lessons about how architecture does not need to protect you. It's a relationship that you have. And, my mother was key because she was always outside. We're always living indoor, outdoor. And she insisted on this beautiful, simple life. And what's interesting is that we went from having, a life of luxury to a life of less luxury, but we never noticed the difference. I was always looking for a place that felt like home. For some reason, it wasn't California for me. And then one day I came to Bali, and that was an immediate, I fell in love almost instantly. And I recognized Bali as this place that honors simplicity. So I had lived in an arid environment, and I knew that this almost, rainforest climate, it was going to take some getting used to. So mostly, as an architect, you get hired to do an extraordinary remodel. I really loved that. Breathing new life into a kind of an abandoned house that nobody was interested in. And I've always been drawn to old structures. So I decided to build the first one. I thought, okay, I'm going to build my own home, and I'm going to bring over this very simple structure. This is a much more complex one that you see now. Have to have this extraordinary alang-alang grass roof that, but the Balinese are the best craftsmen in the world for this. So you have to learn exactly how do you build that roof, It's not just, okay, put it up. So that was a long learning process. So I thought, here in Bali, why do we need to have doors? Let's just, for now, let's see what happens. And let's just leave the leaving completely open. For me, I guess I never, ever thought about safety. Part of it is that Bali and Indonesia at that time, and now, Bali continues to be so safe. But back then, it was incredibly safe. A joglo is actually a pavilion structure. They were never meant to be lived in. They are these odd, unique pavilions that were designed at a time when the royal family was in power, and people would buy them kind of as a status symbol. And so they would put them in the middle of their compound, and they would invite people to have a conversation. And the more tiers you had, this is actually a limasan, but the more sort of layers you had, that signified that you were of higher ranking. So those were never meant to be lived in. Limasan is actually rectangular in shape, and they do lend themselves a little bit easier towards bigger houses. You know what, I love them all because it just depends on what the client wants. If it's one person, one or two people, it might be, that the joglo is a better option. But if you have a family, the limasan works better for that. So I was able to very quietly learn from the workmen. For them, wood is also sacred. The stones are also sacred. So when they're working, I mean, it feels like you're working with monks. Very unique experience. The architect knows what is right, and in particular here. It happens to many builders now that the architect will say, you know, I have to have this sort of roof. A few years down the road, of course the builder gets blamed, you know, when that roof really doesn't work and it's really like rainforest condition. So here, almost everything that I have, this couch that you see here was designed by me. And I design everything because I can, because I find it delightful to do that. The first doors that I made are just from old pieces of wood. I didn't know, because at the beginning, you know, Peksu, what would you do here? And he ended up making the most gorgeous frame. He then put a panel of old wood and just some simple hinges. Those doors couldn't be more perfect. And the cost of those was, you know, it was creativity and it was using what we had. But there was no actual extra cost for it. I've also found that in the States you need to have a lot of collaboration. Now these offices, you know, you're working with a lot of different people. I suppose maybe people here as well. But I always decided that for me, the smaller the team, the better. I mean, we're like 3 people, you know, manager, 1 project manager, and it's because the vision, you know, is there from the beginning. These houses have always been a collection. About 25 that I have built in Ubud, they really are part of a collection. And I also believe that at some point came from another location, because the function didn't work anymore. And they came here to create a new life. Maybe it's possible, you know, because they do happen to come apart, it wouldn't be easy. And maybe it's not the first preference, but imagine, you know, if all of a sudden the homes are not happy here anymore, a few of them, the whole thing comes apart. And, you know, we very, very catalog it and very, very carefully move its essence someplace else to a completely different environment. That's not the end, but the beginning of the work in another location. So I think that's kind of interesting. So for the first time, I'm really thinking that with this way of building, and now it's here in Bali, but maybe the next one could be someplace else. These houses, they have a heating quality to them. I feel that I was able to bring together some really rare elements. And who knows for how long that will be. But let's just say that I was able to identify these extraordinary structures, take them apart, completely reinterpret them someplace new, and then I had the help of extraordinary artisan builders. I think there's a magic in what I have managed to create in these houses. And I think that it's interesting because these are things that you see, you know, in retrospect. When I think about my mom, and I think about the fact that she took her whole life as a work of art. And that was just absolutely clear, you know? But nobody said that while she was living. I was an architect, and I am now an architect and an artist. You know, I feel very fortunate that I've been able to collaborate with the Balinese. It was magical that this house was even able to be built, to be honest. There's no way, even now, if I tried to redo it, even here, I'm not sure I could. I don't really see these as, they're not joglos and limasans anymore. And they really have been transformed and reinterpreted into something very new. in the same way that I identify these in Java, could have said, oh, they belong in Java, and that is very true, and maybe they should never get moved to Bali. And they did move to Bali, and then they got completely transformed. But I feel like all the work is completely, it's fresh, it's new, it's reimagined. I think that is my talent. I think that's Alejandra Cisneros at work. I am humbled by how everybody who I've collaborated with has absolutely continues to adore their experience in their drawings. And that's a surprise for me, because I never knew that would happen, And so I give it away. They take it, they take care of it. And it gives them so much. All of the extraordinary people that I've worked with in Bali, that they feel so fortunate that we were able to co-create these one-of-a-kind homes for them. I have a lot of energy, and I feel that the essence of what I am doing translates. I definitely am up for doing work internationally. That would be a beautiful challenge. Very, very difficult, hard work to do these, but I think it's worth it. Important moving forward, and always, is the collaboration has to feel right. Such difficult birthings to bring this into fruition, that the collaboration needs to be absolutely perfect and seamless. So I would say, moving forward, it would have to be very, very special clients. The kind of person that gets chosen by the work.